Champions Cup, the Sunday games. The first one, it's Toulouse against Ulster. And I feel like Ulster's going to be pretty fired up, having just lost a Pro 14 final. And Toulouse were one of the better teams in the Champions Cup prior to it getting postponed. They went 6 from 6. They still only finished as the third qualifier. Just based on the points difference, they finished less than 2 of the other teams, but still 6 from 6 is a pretty bloody good record. They've named a pretty fine team. But likewise, there's a bunch of internationals in that Ulster team, which have had a few changes to it as well. I'll quickly go over the lineups and who the bookies have got as the favourites for this one, and by what. And you guys can let me know your thoughts on how this is going to go. Like I mentioned, Toulouse went 6 from 6. It's a long time ago now, but the group stages. In pool number 5, they had Gloucester, Montpellier and Connacht in their pool. None of those teams even managed to get out of the pool, so it wasn't... I don't know, I think all those teams finished with a negative record. They all finished with 2 wins and 4 losses, whereas Toulouse just went on an absolute run and smashed everybody. So, yeah, they finished pretty well top. Although since the return of the top 14, they are 1 win and 1 loss. But, I mean, it's really early days in that competition, so kind of hard to say how things are going to go. Maybe Ulster are going to be the slightly sharper side, having just played a final. That's about as sharp as I guess you're allowed to be. Doesn't come much easier than playing Leinster, although an away trip to Toulouse is by no means a joke. Like I mentioned, they lost the Pro 14 final last week. It was a tough game. And they've made some changes, but still kept a relatively stable lineup. Ulster went 5-1 in the pool stages before lockdown, so they finished on the same record as Clermont. But Clermont, who ended up winning that pool, pool number 3, they ended up having a slightly better number of points overall. So, yeah, they all kind of did a pretty dominant thing over Quins and Bath in that pool. In terms of the lineups, there's a fair bit of talent on display for both sides. Dupont and Tamak are the main guys, 9 and 10 for Toulouse, and they will continue on that partnership, which is well established by now, despite both being pretty young guys. Aki and Gatoon are a pretty useful midfield as well. Gatoon, I think, is probably a fair bit quicker than a lot of people would give him credit for. Huge, who knows what you're going to get from him. He can be deadly, or he can have a few clangers. And Colby is just World Cup winning class on that left wing. Ramo at 15 has a big old boot, and he's a pretty secure guy to have in that 15 jersey. They've got Bay, Malvaka and Falmoina in the front row, so that's going to be one area where Ulster will need to front up because those guys aren't going to muck around. Arnold and Takori makes for a pretty big second row. Kaino's at 6, and he's captain. Cruz is your 7. And Tolofua is number 8. So you got the likes of Zach Holmes on the bench, Marchand, and so on. So kind of to be expected. Toulouse's lineup is full of internationals and generally looking pretty class. That being said, Ulster's lineup sees the return of John Cooney at 9. And I honestly understood Mathewson starting ahead of him last week because Cooney, since the return of play, hadn't quite been as sharp as we know. And I think he's still the leading point scorer in this competition for the current season because he was just on absolute fire prior to lockdown. Like, the lockdown for him personally probably came at the worst possible time because he was just absolutely tearing it up. Let's kind of hope he can regather some of that form this week. Billy Burns is at 10. McCloskey and Hume is that midfield, which at times were causing Leinster all kinds of problems last week. Little and Stockdale are your wings, and Lowry is at fullback. For the 4-pack, McGrath comes in at loosehead from the bench. Herring and O'Toole will retain their spots in the front row. O'Connor and Henderson are still 4 and 5. Reedy moves to the 6 jersey. Geordie Murphy's back starting after being on the bench last week. And Timoney is there at number 8. So Mathewson drops to the bench. Matthew Ray drops to the bench. O'Sullivan is there as well. And then I think for the most part, it's pretty steady as she goes. There's no Madigan for this one. It's another 6-2 split, so it's just Mathewson and Matt Faddis, I should mention, is the other guy who comes in. And he can cover virtually the entire back line, old Matt Faddis. So yeah, they obviously want to bring it to the Toulouse forwards with a bit of extra gas at the end of the game. That being said, Toulouse are pretty heavy favourites, which is to be expected. They're a top team and they're at home. 13-point favourites according to the bookies over here in New Zealand, and 11-point favourites with Rugby Forecast's algorithm. I mean, I really hope Ulster, though, can regain some of that form. It's hard after such a long period away. But prior to the lockdown, in the Champions Cup, Ulster were just able to spark every time. They weren't putting teams to the sword. I can't actually remember what the points difference was. I don't think they had a huge points difference in terms of their overall. Let's see if I can quickly bring that up now. Like they weren't, really scoring huge amounts of points. Points difference, yeah, only 22. But they were getting wins, man. They only lost one game. That's how good they were. They were just able to spark at the times they needed to spark. So we'll see if that can happen this Sunday. I think it's a 1:30 game local time in France, which is probably an hour back for people in the UK and Ireland. Anybody who's watching in the Republic as well. In New Zealand, it's like 11:30. I wish it was 7:30. 11:30 at night, so it may be that I have an early night and get up to watch this one in the morning. Hopefully spoiler free. No Twitter, no Facebook, no YouTube. Get up first thing, watch some rugby before work. But yeah, hopefully it's a good game like I said. It would be nice for Ulster to bounce back after the disappointment of losing that final to pick up a famous away win in France, but Toulouse aren't going to make it easy. As I said, they are an absolute class team. They've got world-class players in multiple positions and will look to be putting their best foot forward in terms of getting some silverware early on in the resumption of play, because despite the fact that resumption of play has only just started, we're almost at the end of the competition. So we'll see how that goes. You guys let me know your thoughts on this one. How do you see it going? Do you think it's going to go as predicted and Toulouse just kind of canter to a win, or can you see Ulster giving us a bit of an upset? You guys let me know your thoughts. I'll talk to you again soon. See you later.